Tears aren't common in the House of Windsor, but this time, they couldn't be hidden. As Prince William stepped onto the pitch for a routine royal appearance, there was nothing routine about his face. Observers couldn't ignore it. His eyes seemed distant, heavy. It wasn't fatigue. It was grief dressed in silence. While millions cheered for the sport, the man who would be king was clearly battling something far deeper. And it wasn't long before the truth began to surface. Just days earlier, behind the polished walls of Kensington Palace, a quiet yet piercing blow had been delivered. King Charles, in a move no one saw coming, had decided to withhold a long-anticipated honor from his eldest son and daughter-in-law. An honor that many believed was not only earned, but overdue. The decision didn't come with fury or fanfare, but with silence. That, somehow, made it worse. William, who had been stepping up in his father's shadow, handling duties as Charles, undergoes cancer treatment, was expected to be granted new royal powers, a signal that the future king was finally being trusted to shape the monarchy's next chapter. But instead, that moment was frozen, denied, delayed, and no clear reason was given. This wasn't just about tradition or paperwork, it was personal. At that very public event, where William stood without Catherine by his side, every camera captured the subtle but undeniable weight he carried. The absence of his wife only amplified the tension. And then, just as the event wrapped, royal watchers noticed something chilling. When Charles and William made a rare joint appearance earlier in the week, there had been no warmth, no fatherly hand on the back, no shared glance, only distance. The room had been cold. The message, even colder. Whispers began to swirl. Was this a sign of deeper cracks between father and son? It wouldn't be the first time. Their relationship, often strained, has weathered years of tension, buried emotions, and competing expectations. Unlike Harry's open rebellion, William had always been the dutiful heir, the quiet strength in a family stormed by scandal. But that loyalty had a cost. And perhaps now, he was beginning to feel it. Deep down, beneath the polished exterior, William may have believed that his father's approval was finally within reach. That after decades of preparation, he was about to step into real leadership. But instead, he found himself stuck, celebrated, in public, sidelined in private. And so, as the cameras flashed and fans cheered, William stood alone in more ways than one. His silence spoke volumes, and the weight of the crown, not yet his, already seemed unbearable. But what exactly did the king reject? And why is it such a devastating blow to the Wales family? This isn't just a fancy piece of paper. It's a weapon of influence in the royal world. Royal warrants are more than ceremonial traditions. They're one of the oldest, most exclusive tools in the monarchy's arsenal, tools that shape economies, elevate businesses overnight, and silently determine who thrives under the crown's shadow. For centuries, these marks of approval have carried the weight of royal power. A business that earns one doesn't just get recognition, it earns legitimacy in a world where perception is everything. And at the heart of the latest royal firestorm lies this very privilege, one that William and Catherine were poised to inherit, only to have it quietly stripped from their grasp. Within the royal household, these warrants are sacred. Granted only by the reigning monarch or select senior working royals, they serve as the ultimate endorsement, a public declaration that a brand is fit to serve the crown. From gourmet foods to luxury tailoring to technology providers, a royal warrant can transform an ordinary vendor into a household name. But what makes this tradition especially powerful isn't just its prestige, it's who gets to bestow it. And therein lies the conflict. William and Catherine, long expected to ascend into this position of symbolic authority, were on the verge of being granted the right to issue these endorsements. It was seen as a crucial next step in solidifying their growing role as future king and queen. But just as the announcement was expected, it was suddenly paused, and the king's refusal or calculated delay sent shockwaves through royal watchers and insiders alike. The rejection wasn't merely procedural, it was loaded with subtext. King Charles himself received his warrant-issuing powers back in 1980 as the Prince of Wales. He held the authority for over 4 decades, shaping markets and symbolically preparing for kingship. Yet despite William's increasing workload and Catherine's national popularity, their path to the same privilege, has now been halted without explanation. The decision cuts deeper when viewed through the lens of succession. It subtly signals that while William and Catherine may appear ready, Charles isn't quite ready to hand over the keys to royal influence, not even partially. Critics within the Bury establishment and beyond are raising questions. Was this delay a matter of caution or control? Some see it as the king's safeguarding legacy, while others whisper of doubt about whether he views William's generation as truly capable of carrying the institution forward without compromise. The backlash hasn't just emerged from palace corridors. Businesses that have long aligned themselves with the Waleses are beginning to voice frustration. They had hoped for an imminent endorsement, a royal connection that could propel them into the global spotlight. But now, everything remains in limbo. And for Catherine, the impact goes far beyond royal politics. It touches every stitch she wears. A single photograph of her outfit can crash a designer's website. This is the power of Catherine, Princess of Wales. In a world where image is currency and influence drives economies, she has become a silent force reshaping the fashion industry without ever uttering a word about it. With every public appearance, she sparks a global ripple effect. What she wears becomes a trend. What she touches becomes a brand. Catherine doesn't just wear clothes. She moves markets. It's been dubbed the Catherine effect. And for more than a decade, it's driven millions in sales, lifted unknown designers into the spotlight, and even revitalized legacy labels on the brink of irrelevance. But now, with the denial of royal warrant privileges by King Charles, that influence has hit a roadblock, one that's more than symbolic. It's strategic. Think back to the meteoric rise of Alexander McQueen's modern collections, or the surge of interest in self-portrait after a single outing. Catherine's choices don't just sit pretty in tabloids, they generate measurable economic shockwaves. Even obscure accessories, once captured in the public eye, sell out within hours. For brands, her appearance is worth more than a billboard in Times Square. Yet, despite this unparalleled power, she remains locked out of officially endorsing any of these companies under the royal banner. Because, without the ability to grant royal warrants, her fashion influence, while potent, is still unofficial. It's a whisper in the palace halls when it could be a roar on the world stage. Behind the scenes, many brands had already begun preparing, anticipating the moment when William and Catherine would finally be given the green light to formalize their endorsements. They expected the moment to arrive with fanfare, not silence. But King Charles's decision to halt that progression has left these hopes hanging in midair. It's not just a delay in paperwork, it's a message. The monarchy, for now, remains cautious about handing over symbolic tools of control to the younger generation, even as public demand grows for their leadership. And for Catherine, that message stings twice as hard. Because she's not just a style icon, she's become a modern face of diplomacy. Her image, her poise, her resonance with the public, they all carry potential for soft power that could be leveraged far beyond the runway. In today's world, public diplomacy is no longer done solely through speeches and state visits. It's done through image, through empathy, through visibility. Catherine possesses all of that. But without the formal backing of the crown, her ability to turn cultural clout into concrete royal endorsement remains stifled. What's been denied here isn't just a business tool, it's a gateway to deeper influence. And the implications of that denial are still unfolding. But this isn't just about outfits and economics. There's a deeper pattern unfolding. Not even Diana, beloved by millions, was ever granted this power. It's a truth that few speak aloud, but one that echoes through royal history like a silent accusation. Despite her global fame, humanitarian efforts, and undeniable connection with the public, Princess Diana was never allowed to issue royal warrants. The last Princess of Wales to hold that power lived over a century ago in 1910. Since then, the role has remained symbolically frozen, shut off to the very women who arguably shaped the monarchy's modern identity. Diana's story is a reminder that in the royal world, public adoration doesn't always translate to institutional authority. And now, Catherine stands in the same shadow, loved, respected, admired, yet waiting behind the same invisible wall. Diana redefined royalty. She wasn't just a figurehead, she was a force. But even at the height of her influence, her reach was tightly controlled. Her emotional vulnerability, her bold choices, Her ability to connect with ordinary people, these things made her dangerous to the establishment. And though she reshaped the monarchy's public image, she was never trusted with its deeper powers. Now, decades later, that unspoken skepticism seems to linger. Catherine, who mirrors Diana's grace and relatability, finds herself celebrated by the world, yet stalled by the institution she loyally serves. There's an undeniable parallel between the two women. Both became cultural icons. Both turned public appearances into moments of global fascination. And both managed to modernize the monarchy simply by being human in a world that demanded perfection. Yet, where Diana broke barriers through rebellion, Catherine has taken a quieter path, one of diplomacy, dedication, and duty. But even her unwavering commitment hasn't fast-tracked her into the inner circle of true influence. The delay in granting royal warrant powers isn't just administrative, it reflects a deeper reluctance to fully open the gates to royal women, no matter how capable or beloved they are. This tension is rarely addressed openly, but it's written between the lines of royal protocol. Time and again, senior female royals are celebrated as symbols, but withheld from true authority. It's a pattern as old as the institution itself, where queens are crowned beside kings, but rarely handed the reins. And though the monarchy has evolved, the mechanisms of power still reveal their biases. For Catherine, the challenge isn't just about being the future queen, it's about stepping out of a century-long silence imposed on her title. Yet, despite the resistance, she hasn't stopped. With every initiative she leads and every issue she champions, Catherine is quietly rewriting the rules. She may not hold the warranting power her title once promised, but she's building something perhaps more enduring: public trust and cultural relevance. And that, in today's world, is its own form of authority. Still, Catherine hasn't stepped back. She's quietly reshaping the crown in her own way. While royal privileges are delayed, Catherine is building an empire of a different kind. In the quiet corridors of power where ceremonial honors are slow to arrive, Catherine has chosen not to wait. She's turned her focus to something far more urgent: childhood. But not just any part of childhood. The earliest years, the ones science tells us, define almost everything that comes after. While the monarchy debates who gets to issue royal warrants, Catherine has set her sights on transforming society from its roots. And she's doing it with a plan, a purpose, and a growing army of allies. At the heart of her revolution is the Royal Foundation's Business Task Force for Early Childhood, a bold initiative led by the Princess of Wales. It's unlike anything the royal family has spearheaded before. This isn't about ribbon cutting or photo ops. This is about policy, research, and real-world impact. Catherine has rallied corporate giants names like IKEA, NatWest, and leading supermarket chains not for charity, but for systemic change. Together, they're designing programs that support working parents, nurture early development, and push child well-being into boardroom agendas. In a country where childcare costs are rising and emotional well-being is often overlooked, Catherine is stepping into the void left by politics, using the crown's influence not to command, but to guide. The turning point came with her landmark. Report, a document that didn't just raise awareness, but issued a national challenge. It laid out, with stark clarity, how the first 5 years of life shape everything from mental health to economic productivity. Catherine didn't present it as a sentimental cause. She presented it as a national investment. An investment that, if ignored, would cost more in the long run financially, socially, emotionally. For the first time, a member of the royal family was using their platform not just to highlight issues, but to architect a solution. The impact was immediate. Media outlets shifted their tone. Politicians took notice. Parents across the country, often overwhelmed and under-supported, felt seen. Catherine had struck a chord not by making grand declarations, but by doing the work quietly, consistently, and with depth. In many ways, she's redefining what it means to serve in the royal family, not through inherited titles or ceremonies, but through purpose-driven influence that reaches far beyond palace walls. And yet, the contrast couldn't be sharper. As Catherine builds alliances and lays the groundwork for generational change, the traditional symbols of royal empowerment, like the right to issue warrants, remain out of reach. She's proving that leadership isn't granted, it's claimed, through action, through substance, through vision. But as Catherine builds hope, William is left fending off doubt alone. He was alone, and the questions came flooding in. Prince William's appearance at the FA Cup final should have been routine, a ceremonial nod to tradition, a royal figure presenting a trophy, smiling for the cameras. But this time, something was off. The cheers from the crowd couldn't drown out what the cameras caught. A prince who looked not just solemn, but burdened. And as the moment played out live across the world, one question surged to the surface. Where was Catherine? Her absence wasn't just noted, it was dissected. For a couple who rarely appear apart, her decision to sit out such a major public event sent ripples through the media. Commentators scrambled for answers, while social media lit up with speculation. Was she unwell? Was there tension behind the scenes? Was this connected to the quiet tension brewing between William and the king? The timing couldn't have been worse. Days after being denied the royal authority both he and Catherine had earned, William now stood in front of the nation alone, unsupported, and visibly affected. And yet, he carried on. He smiled when it was expected. He congratulated the victors. But then came the moment that truly caught everyone's attention. In a personal message released shortly after the match, William congratulated Crystal Palace on their historic victory. On the surface, it seemed like a simple gesture, but the wording carried weight. The tone was warm, personal, and unusually heartfelt, like a man trying to remind the world that he still had something to celebrate, even when things behind palace walls felt uncertain. To some, it was just sportsmanship. To others, it was a veiled message. A reassurance that he was still standing, still present, still trying. The emotional weight of the event was not lost on the public. For a future king, appearances matter. And for a husband known for his loyalty and devotion, being alone at such a moment said more than words ever could. This wasn't just a logistical absence. It was a statement. Or at least, that's how it felt to many watching closely. The press, royal commentators and fans began asking what the palace wouldn't say out loud. Was there more going on than anyone was willing to admit? Suddenly, the FA Cup wasn't just a football match. It was a symbol, a mirror reflecting the cracks forming beneath the surface of Britain's most powerful family. A prince left alone, a princess missing from view, and a kingdom starting to notice. As whispers grew louder, the palace issued a quiet announcement, and it changed everything. Just when the silence grew unbearable, Kensington made its move. After weeks of questions, speculation, and a growing sense of unease surrounding the future of the monarchy, an announcement finally broke the tension. William and Catherine would appear together in Scotland. It wasn't just any royal engagement. It was carefully chosen, deliberately timed, and broadcast as a clear message. The future king and queen were still united, still standing side by side. But beneath the polished smiles and warm handshakes, many couldn't help but wonder, was this a genuine return to strength or a carefully orchestrated performance to quiet the storm? For the public, their joint appearance was a balm, a familiar image of the royal duo seemingly undeterred by recent setbacks. They laughed with children, visited charities, and posed as the picture of unity. But to seasoned royal watchers, this wasn't just another engagement, it was damage control, wrapped in royal protocol. The trip came on the heels of a delayed royal warrant, rising questions over Catherine's health, and William's eerily solitary outing at the FA Cup. Suddenly, Scotland became the stage where the future of the crown was being silently negotiated, not just between the couple, but between the monarchy and the public. The choice of location carried its own weight. Scotland has long been a symbolic battleground for royal relevance, with national sentiment shifting and talks of independence always lurking in the background. Showing strength in the Northern Kingdom was no accident. William and Catherine's presence there was as much about national unity as it was about personal reassurance. Yet, behind the photo ops and speeches, the emotional stakes ran deep. This wasn't just about being seen. It was about being believed. Believed as partners, as heirs, as a stabilizing force in a monarchy walking a tightrope. Still, the cracks weren't easily ignored. Some observers noted the overly rehearsed moments. Others highlighted the absence of spontaneity that once defined their appearances. It led to a new wave of murmurs. Were they truly navigating this together, or merely performing a script written by the palace in a time of crisis? The tension wasn't just in their body language, It was in the expectations they now carried. The trip was meant to reassure, but instead, it raised a darker, more complicated question. Because sometimes, silence speaks louder than unity. And, sometimes, a united front is the last thing shown before the walls come down. Behind the royal smiles, the monarchy faces a decision that could reshape its very future. If King Charles walks away, the storm he leaves behind may destroy what remains. Sant Dies. Whispers have grown louder. What began as quiet concern about the king's health has now turned into open speculation. Will Charles abdicate the throne? At 76, undergoing treatment for cancer, and bearing the full weight of a monarchy in flux, the question is no longer unthinkable. It's imminent. And with every day that passes without clarity, the royal family edges closer to a constitutional and emotional cliff. Because if the king steps down without fully empowering his heir, what follows may not be a smooth transition, but a power vacuum with consequences that could fracture the crown from within. All eyes turn to William. To many, he already looks like a king-in-waiting, shouldering national duties, commanding public respect, and standing firm in times of upheaval. And beside him, Catherine represents the modern monarchy people crave: compassionate, composed, and relatable. Together, they've quietly built trust, their popularity climbing even as the institution around them grows increasingly fragile. But behind the admiration lies a dangerous truth. Admiration alone won't be enough if the transfer of power remains incomplete. Without the full trust and symbolic authority of the crown, without the royal warrants, the titles, the unequivocal endorsement, William and Catherine remain figureheads with clipped wings. And that's where the danger lies. Because insiders warn that if Charles departs before formally empowering his son, the monarchy will be thrown into limbo. The public will look to William for leadership, but the palace machinery may not move fast enough to meet that expectation. There would be confusion, not continuity. Hesitation, not strength. And in a world increasingly skeptical of hereditary power, one misstep could cost more than just approval ratings. It could cost the monarchy itself. The delay in granting royal warrants, once dismissed as mere timing, is now being seen in a new, ominous light. Was it a signal of doubt? A final assertion of control by a king uncertain about the future? Or something more complex, an emotional struggle between holding on and letting go? Whatever the reason, it has deepened the divide between generations and heightened the sense that something within the palace is being withheld. Not just privilege, but trust. And still, William waits. Catherine continues her work. The public leans in, watching a family walk the tightrope of tradition and change. The question is no longer if they're ready, it's whether they'll be allowed to lead before it's too late. As the monarchy faces one of its most uncertain chapters yet, the question remains, will William and Catherine rise or be held back by a legacy they didn't choose? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.